Good afternoon. All right, I see other people kind of heading in and joining. Welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm going to jump right in. I'm Veronica Chase, and the webinar I'm hosting today is Why Knowing Your Design is Not Enough. So the difference between understanding BG5 and applying it correctly are what we are going to take a deep dive into today. All right. So a little bit about me, if you don't know me and my background, I'm a 4-6 classic builder with a follow your gut strategy. My life work theme is consciousness. I had my first session with a BG5 consultant back in late 2019, and I started my studies immediately after that, right at the beginning of 2020. So I am now in my 7th year of my human design experiment. I am a career and business consultant. I'm a cycles consultant, profit potential coach, and I'm an instructor for the BG5 Institute. My next foundation, semester 1, is starting in 2 weeks from today. On March 11th, that class will be on this day and time, so Wednesdays at 3 p.m. And if you've already completed foundation and you're thinking about certification next, my certification semester 1 starts on May 1st. Those sessions are going to run on Fridays at 1 p.m. So I live on the East Coast of the United States, so I'm Eastern Standard Time. And there's just a little bit more information over here to the right. I have a really extensive business background. I've worked in many capacities. The overall field that I work in is learning and development. That's an HR function. So I've worked in global companies. I've had my own businesses. I have my own business now. I'm also the head of learning and development in an organization now as well. So I do a lot of facilitation. I do a lot of leadership development and a whole lot of coaching every single day. I have various formal degrees. And I think the thing I would share with you is that transformation has always been a big part of my life. I've worked with many people at this point over the years, but BG5 really excites me. You know, human design for business has just given me a whole other lens and insight to use with my clients and really helping to shine a light on those things that are conscious and unconscious within you to help you to be successful in your career and life. So that's really what I am all about. So let's see, continuing on here. Let's see. So what I'm going to cover today is a bit about this knowledge gap that I see going on. So why information alone does not create alignment. This is true, right, in any area of discipline. The common misapplication of this knowledge, how people misread their career type in real life. And I want to talk with you about the differences between description and recognition and the critical difference between those two things. Competence is also an important part of this discussion. So what is the standard for professional competence in this work? And then what is the purpose of foundation in particular, and that 2-semester starting point for your studies? Like, what is it exactly designed to teach you that perhaps you don't already know? So I'll get into all of that. My goal is that you leave today with a clear understanding of the gap between knowing and applying and why that gap matters more than most people realize, the ability to recognize that misapplication in yourself and others so you can stop reinforcing patterns that are not serving you, and how to get a concrete picture of what competence requires. So I'll be covering all of that today and various other things. So listen, there's a lot of information out there, right? You can learn a lot. I use AI in my field all the time. Every day I'm using AI for things. I read a lot. I learn a lot. I am a lifelong learner. I like to study things and learn new things. So books, videos, podcasts, AI tools, right? There's lots of stuff out there that can teach you BG5 and human design vocabulary, but recognizing what is actually correct for a real person in their actual career and life is entirely different. So knowledge is a very important starting point, but it's not the destination. Being savvy and competent at taking that information and knowledge and actually working with a person, that is real, where the real success lies. So we have a bit of like this iceberg problem kind of going on. There's this visible layer out there, right? I tested out myself to see like, okay, what does AI tell me? And I use lots of different AI tools in my work. So I'll ask and pull things in different places. And sometimes it's decent. Sometimes it's really good. And sometimes it's off the mark, like it's making things up for sure. It's just misinterpreting certain nuances. But I can recognize that because of the depth of my knowledge. If I didn't know one way or the other, I would just think this is it. This is the truth. So a lot of people do engage out there, right? Because human design has just become sort of very popular and knowable out there. And they engage with it on a very surface level, like, oh, I'm a this, and oh, you're a that. And, I'm emotionally defined, or I'm a gut response, or I'm an advisor, and I'm here to be, recognized and invited, whatever it is. And those are all important elements to know, right? To begin with. But that is not the be all end all. Where these things come together and play out in one's life and career, that's where the real work actually sits. So knowing the terminology is the tip of the iceberg, but that correct application goes much deeper. And, many people do feel, actual relief, like, oh my gosh, I'm this. This explains so much. I mean, I can remember how that first felt for me for sure. Like, wow, this really does explain a lot. But that was the starting point. Right? Then I had to start living it to see, well, what am I noticing? How does this actually play out with the mechanics? So intellectual understanding is, okay, you can name things. You know what the career types are, various aspects of definition. Maybe the various strengths and how that comes together. You can name all the functions, right? You understand the career profiles. There's, all these individual components in the design, and you may be very good at having all of that down and memorized. The gap is really about how you actually use that to make decisions in life, how you become a clear communicator, and how you take confident action. When those things are not happening, that's the gap. It's like something intellectually, but you're not really living it and applying it. And the fact of the matter is, we're all, designed, in one sense, mostly trained from a very, very early age, probably no matter what culture you're from, to make decisions from our mind, right? I was thinking about this earlier as I was getting ready for this, when you talk, if I think about even when my girls were little, which one do you want? Do you want this one or this one? What do you think is the best choice? Like, think carefully, choose carefully. As you got older, your parents or other adults around you may have said, well, have you weighed the pros and the cons? Have you asked other people for their advice? What does that expert say? Maybe you should just follow their advice, right? Like, we are really taught, like, every moment of every day to live from our minds. That's the gap. Unraveling all of that takes actual work. So this correct application and then applying that with a client and coaching, that's what actually matters the most. And that is the key to building a successful practice, right? Because again, as I started off with, well, anybody can go out there and get basic information about their design at this point. So what am I doing that is setting myself apart and working with my clients and businesses and leaders and teams that is different and is going to actually, make a meaningful difference for them? So we can know our type, but we can still struggle to move forward. And that's signaling something to us, right? It's this whole issue of information versus alignment. Information is the reading and the watching and the studying and the memorizing. And depending upon the qualities in your design, you may really love that, love studying and taking it in. I said that to you earlier when I started. I mean, I love learning new things. Although there is a cutoff point for me. Like I like learning, but it's actually not the only thing I love to do. I'm really interested in applying the information and seeing how it actually plays out in life. And I've just always been that way. So living it, experimenting with it, observing it, integrating it. And that has really, I think, ultimately helped me to be a helpful coach, that could actually guide people in a meaningful way. So alignment requires this embodied experience, not more consumption. We can get really caught up in the consumption of information, but, really the BG5 system is built for this recognition, not memorization. And I think, again, this getting caught up in like knowing things and making sure that other people know that you know things, it's just not enough. It just is not enough. It's not going to differentiate you in any way from everybody else that's out there. What is going to do it is your own alignment and your own experience with this, and then guiding other people in it. So this misinterpretation is going on. We can read descriptions and make it a prescription. Oh, you've got to do this, but not really understand what that means. The one thing I have most certainly learned now in my 7 years of doing this, and once I was well into certification, and I think it's in semester 2 in particular, you can kind of get out there and start letting people know that, you're studying this and, you'd like to work with them for practice. So I started doing that immediately, as soon as I could, and started working with actual clients. And the biggest thing that I noticed is that, yeah, I have to learn what a particular strength is, or what the function means, or what the shadows look like, right? That's the knowledge, the mechanics, and like how we describe all of that and how it likely shows up. But the big thing I've learned again and again is that the way it actually shows up for individuals varies a whole lot. Why is that? It's because, when we're studying, we will hone in on an element like, oh, let's talk about the functions. Oh, let's talk about the profiles. Let's look at this, let's look at that. And we need to do that in our studies. But the other part of it is the way to get to this application is we have to keep bringing it together. We have to keep bringing it together and talking about, well, how does this actually play out? What does this actually look like in my life? How does it impact my decision making? Let me think about an example, right, of a way I made a decision and how I went down a wrong path from using my mind versus made a decision that felt good in my gut and what the result was out of that, right? So that's the difference there. We also have to watch about projecting our own views onto others, that what we think something means is definitively that thing. I mean, as a coach, I just naturally ask a lot of questions, but that's a huge part as well, right, of being a BG5 consultant. If you're interested in going down that path, is we got to ask a lot of questions and really see how for individual clients and leaders and teams, this really plays out for them. And then I can go to that place of giving meaningful guidance. But I want to emphasize, it's not like, oh, I just was able to magically do that once I started studying enough. No, it came together over time from learning, applying, talking to a client, seeing what their lived experience was, meeting other people in my classes, learning what they were experiencing and noticing, and realizing that there is a lot of nuance. So I have to give space, to anybody that I'm working with to see how things are coming together. Then I'm layering in my guidance for them, on their career or how to work with their team in a different way. So I think the thing I like to emphasize here too is that we're talking about real people in real careers, and there are real stakes. If I give someone lousy or misguided advice, there is a serious chance I am going to get them really off track. I take that really seriously, right? For me, that's my personal and business integrity that I bring to the situation. When people come to me and they are really unhappy in their careers or in their lives, and I've been there myself many times because of that cross of consciousness. I have been there many times. So I know what it feels like to think, oh, everything's going along just great. And now suddenly everything falls apart in front of me. Now what? What am I going to do next? And I can distinctly remember now how different it feels for me making decisions from my gut response versus wanting to use my mind to make the decision, and how that looked for me in the past. And this is the thing too. It's not like every decision I made before 2019 turned out badly. Of course not, right? Because there's still an element of our design is at work, whether we understand it or not. So it's not like everything went wrong, but I can totally see now how there were definitely times where I was making decisions because I was being talked into something, or I wanted someone to be happy with me or like me, or whatever, right? There are so many nuances to this. We all get pulled in to situations in a variety of ways. And that's the other thing that I've noticed continues to be true. My shadows are not gone. They're still here. The question becomes, how have I learned to work with them and notice, right? Build my self-awareness, keep going deeper into my own self-awareness. And then I take that and use that with others that I work with. And again, that's not just me. That's an opportunity for all of us. You are having your lived experience. And what I've noticed is, in some way, with your design and with your life work, you are meant to take that out to other people, right? That's the whole thing of our, the expertise of our mind, taking that out into the world, right? That's not for us to use our mind to apply it to our lives. It's about how we take our experiences and our knowledge and knowing and all of these things and take them out into the world. So some common ways that things can get misapplied is using type as an identity. I'm a this, I'm a that, what are you? That's, again, it's nice, it's okay, it's a starting point, but now what? Okay, I'm a builder, you're an advisor, you're an initiator. I have an advisor daughter, I have an initiator daughter, I have a builder husband. Okay, what do we all need to know about that? Like, how does this actually play out? Bypassing strategy is a constant for all the reasons I already shared with you. We want to keep using our mind always to make decisions, right? And our mind is essentially looking at our design. And I'll go over into the software a little bit later, just to kind of point out some things, but this is just happening all the time. And depending upon who we're around, who our design is interacting with, what transits are going on, what stage am I in my cycles, right? All of these things come into play to impact the experience that I'm having. So the whole thing of living from my strategy becomes an opportunity on a daily and moment by moment basis. And there's, in that same way, I can get off track. I do get off track. The difference is I now see when I'm off track. I've noticed when I'm off track. And then I'm tapping back into my gut response. Now I no longer hesitate to go back and say, I know I said yes to that, but I'm now realizing this is not a yes for me right now. So we can revisit this in a few months. But for now, it's a no. And being comfortable with myself and confident in myself. Why? Because that is my strategy. That is my knowing. I don't have anything else. Before, I thought it all mattered, in terms of how it was coming from my mind. Was I making a good decision, a solid decision? But ultimately, I've learned it is about my body consciousness. And that is true for all of us, just in different ways, right? What is my body consciousness telling me? The other thing is like trying to coach people before you've lived it is not a good idea. No, it really is not a good idea for, again, reasons I was sharing before. So you have got to live it for yourself first. Otherwise, you could distort what you're saying to someone, or potentially, give up some seriously misguided or dole out, some seriously misguided advice to another person. And that is not going to be good, right? For your reputation, and just your own integrity. And then there's just the generic application, right? Just kind of ignoring the guidance and saying, well, it's this. So we all experience this in the same way. Gosh, oh, you're a gut response builder as well. Your experience must be just like mine. No, it's not actually. There are aspects of the mechanics that are true when we have similarities like that. But why am I saying it's different? It's different because we are not just one element of our design. We are all of it. It's all there. And it's like an orchestra, right? I could listen in on one particular instrument and hone in there, but one instrument doesn't make up the orchestra. All the instruments and the conductor, right, make up the orchestra. So just using that as an analogy, it's the way the whole thing comes together. And that's what we're learning in our studies and applying again and again. So, just taking like some classic advice, this is going to vary by where you are and kind of what's the norm in your particular country. In the US, certainly when I was getting started in my career, you got to get out there and network. You got to be proactive. You got to reach out. You got to let people know who you are and what you're about. Okay, that's an example of generic advice, right? And I was doing those things. And like I said before, it's not like it all turned out badly. It's just that it was definitely burning me out, wearing me down. I ended up ultimately in situations that were just not always the best for me. They weren't bringing out the best of me. That's how I look at it now. Like I want to be in situations that are bringing the best out of me. And when I follow my gut response, that's actually what happens, right? Because again, it's the only thing I can actually trust. So for a builder, acting this way makes them behave like an initiator. As someone who is a builder, we already fall into that trap like 100 times a day. I want to behave like an initiator, right? Because of all of my background and, cultural training of being told to get out there and go get it. So that's taking action outside of our response and likely using our energy on the wrong things, which can burn out builders. It's just that builders have a lot of energy, so they can put all this energy into stuff, and it might take a moment before they realize just how drained they are by those poor decisions they made. For an advisor, the burnout could be a little bit more immediate, along with the bitterness, that's the opposite of being recognized and invited in a correct way. For an initiator, this informing is missing. So acting without informing is going to create resistance. It's not going to give them momentum. So if they're just out there acting and doing stuff and not actually connecting and informing others, it works against them. I see this happen with my younger daughter, who, like I shared with you, is an initiator. If she doesn't actively inform those around her, like what she's attempting to do, it's almost like she somehow gets like blocked or ignored or misunderstood, right? I've noticed a lot of different things can happen for her. And my girls are pretty young. They're 21 and 24. So, they're still learning, right? And kind of finding their way. But I've been sharing this information with them now, these last 7 years. And for a reflector, the monthly cycles end up getting ignored with advice like this, rushing into decisions and not having clarity. For our reflector evaluators out there, really basing their decisions across the month. So a full moon cycle is a key aspect of that type. So we have this idea here of like descriptions again versus recognition, which is what I've been talking about for a bit. So like builders, for example, have this sustainable energy. They're here to respond to life and they work best doing what they love. This is true. This is the description we share all the time about builders. It tells you what the design is. It is accurate. It resonates, but there's really no guidance on what you should start doing differently tomorrow. Recognition is really, going to happen by talking with the person and saying, okay, what are you noticing, with your response? Or do you notice how your mind is jumping in? I'm going to either have to notice this in myself, or if I'm in conversation with someone, ask them questions and help them to get to notice it. So the recognition is really live, contextual, and precise, and it's identifying what is mechanically happening right now and what would be correct in this moment to do. And again, that takes practice. So description is, okay, this tells you the what, but the recognition kind of gets into the how. And that difference can really change everything. So, there's lots of things that we're doing, right? When we're learning this and then actually applying it, describing the map, the intellectual understanding of the terrain, what does everything mean? What are the labels of things? Again, all important. And, by the way, let's make sure it's all correct. And, at this point, depending upon where you got information from, it could be many iterations off of the original source material. So at the BG5 Institute and at IHDS, we're using, and in Jovian, of course, we're using all of Ra's original source materials for human design, and for the BG5 side of it as well, the human design for business, that all came directly from Ra. So we're not making things up. We haven't recreated his words or anything like that. We are using the original information. And for me, like, I just really appreciate that. Like that holds high value for me, because I feel confident in what I'm learning and then how I'm using the information. And I know that it's true to the source. So we're navigating territory, okay, how do we use what we're learning to make decisions, course correct, and then, at some point start guiding others through the actual terrain, and then have enough mastery at some point where you can really successfully guide other people and navigate them without losing them or yourself, right, along the way. So a little bit about competence. Just to kind of play on what I was just noting here about using the source material, this is about accurate recognition, seeing what's mechanically correct. We're not just guessing, we're not making generalizations, clear communication. How do we translate this language into, actionable guidance that a client can use? Those ethical boundaries, what are you qualified to actually address? And then, you holding that line for you. I mean, as I've learned more, I add more, to the work that I do with clients. But, for example, before I ever took cycles, even though I've always been interested in cycles, and I studied astrology pretty extensively before I ever got into BG5 and human design, you know, it's not like I would just start jumping into cycles with people. I really didn't know enough at that point. So again, it would have taken me to a place where I would have just had very much surface knowledge. And I don't know, that's not necessarily helpful in any kind of meaningful way. So just kind of know like where your boundary is for now, right? And then add to it, the boundary will keep shifting. And then your personal assimilation is definitely so key. How are you living it? The one thing I started doing almost from the get-go, again, this ties to my interest in cycles, is I just started paying attention every day. Where's the sun now? What trait are we in now? How is it impacting my design? What am I noticing? And for the last several years, actually now, I take notes on an almost daily basis. I'm pretty consistent. I'm noticing this. I'm noticing that. This happened. This is what's going on right now. And it's been fascinating for me, like when I come back to that trait in that cycle again, and I look back and see what happened in prior years, it's an interesting way for me to learn from my own learning, right? Of like, well, what happened to me there? Am I noticing the same pattern now, or is something else happening? So just continuing to go deeper and deeper into my own experiment. And I encourage that for everybody, right? Like, yeah, we got to start somewhere and start learning, but how are you going to keep learning and keep applying it? So competence isn't confidence. We got to also feel confident with our competence. And applying it. So the confidence is going to come from your enthusiasm in studies, and then the competence is coming from the structured learning, your lived experience, your honest self-observations over time, and both matter. But your competence is really going to protect your clients, right? Like having confidence alone is not going to be enough. You need both of these things. So this structured assimilation, how are you applying it? How do you approach your structured learning? How do you keep applying it in a professional application is what I'm talking about here. And assimilation is not passive, right? Not at all. It's about actively observing, like I was just sharing, across different situations. When different things come up for my girls, I'm talking with them about it. And sometimes now, actually, not even sometimes, a lot of times now, they actively ask me, is something going on? Like, what's going on? I'm noticing this, or this is going on, right? Because I've gotten them to pay attention to their body consciousness and notice things that their mind cannot necessarily figure out or speak to, but they're noticing something else going on. So it's that kind of observing and noticing. I was also saying a little bit earlier that, our conditioning, the not self, the shadows, all of those words kind of describe the openness, yes, in our design, but not just the openness, it's also just the overall conditioning. Even when you have something defined, you have a function defined, or you have a particular strength, it does not automatically mean you are living it and using it in an automatically healthy way. So certainly things get amplified in undefined centers. Over time, we can mistake this conditioned energy for our own identity. And, so again, a big part of it as a successful coach and consultant is about, well, do you recognize your own conditioning? Do you see how this is actually playing out for you? Like I said, I've noticed more and more I have much deeper awareness of these conditioning behaviors. But depending upon what situation I'm in, I have and still do walk out of a big meeting with a large group of people, or even something smaller, maybe a penta in particular. A penta will do it to me, or a large group. And I walk away from that. I'm like, why did I say that? What was I thinking in that moment? Like the strangest things at times, not all the time, I feel come out of my mouth, depending upon, who I'm sort of engaging with. And it's just because of the mechanics. So I always just try to go into it with that awareness. It takes time. It's time and observation and the structured learning. And that's how I've trained myself to just really notice and take in everything that's going on. So as far as foundation is concerned, what it is, what it isn't, it's just important to realize in the world of BG5, this is not just some type overview class like the basics. It definitely goes way beyond that. And because we know that people have access to so much information compared to even just 2-3 years ago, it's not about staying in that place. I know with my own students, I'm just constantly trying to work with them to practice the keynoting, practice bringing it all together. Tell us about what you're noticing in your own life. How are you assimilating this? What is your experience? What is changing, right? And all the instructors, right? We're always just trying to go deeper. The knowledge is there. Yes, we're going to study it in this particular way, but it is this deep structure, deep dive into the foundational elements, and then how you can, scaffold and build your genuine recognition and knowledge and this professional grade competence. So foundation is really about initial keynoting of elements in a design. Like I was saying earlier, it's like, well, you absolutely have to know that, right? You have to know the career types and the the functions and what's happening when functions are defined or undefined, all of those elements are true. And we want to hone in each of those areas. We do spend a lot of time in semester 2, by the way, getting much more into the circuitry, which adds a whole other dimension. And so a lot of times foundation 1 might feel like, yeah, I feel like I have a good grasp of this. Like this feels pretty good, which is again, is why I make sure I spend a lot of time making sure we're practicing and applying it. But once you get to semester 2, most people are not like, yeah, I already knew all of this. We are going deep really, really fast. And then all of that is a setup to moving into certification and then going even deeper and applying it, in many, many different ways, in that whole study as well. So I focus on initial keynoting of the elements in the design, recognizing correct strategy. What does that actually look like? How does it tend to play out? Let's get some different examples in here and talk about how it actually plays out in real life. And then also understanding all the elements in context, right? I'm just constantly trying to bring us back to that. And I shared that earlier as well. Like I have the 515. So patterns and my own rhythms are a huge part of how I operate. That is conscious in me. It's also part of my, my life work, the 5 and the 35 in particular, with that focus on consciousness. But I'm not just the 515. I'm the 515 with a gut response builder, a 4-6 profile on the cross of consciousness with all of these other things defined and undefined. So we have to keep working to weave everything back together and put it in its proper context. We can't just keep looking at one thing and saying, well, this is likely what is going to happen because of that, because it doesn't function that way in life. Right? It comes together in context, and we are not any one element of our design. Again, we're the whole thing, and the whole thing is getting experienced and playing out every single day. And then, of course, the other thing we're doing is building vocabulary. What is the language of human design for business? And we want to do that with precision, not guessing. And, it's Ra ultimately developed that other line of language because he felt it just resonated more in the world of business. So foundation is a professional standard, and that's required before you go into certification for, all the reasons I've been sharing so far today. So we want to make sure we're applying things in the proper way and not risking confusion, misalignment, or worse. And, you could end up inadvertently reinforcing patterns in someone that they actually are trying to move beyond, so how do you do this in a skillful way? So accurate chart recognition, ethical coaching boundaries, language that empowers, and, being really grounded in the mechanics and the framework and not somebody's personal interpretation of that. And that's a lot of what is out there. And again, it's not like I don't have an opinion of like, oh my God, that's so wrong. It's certainly not right for me. Like I said, like I value the source information. I value the integrity and the authenticity and the correctness of that. That's important to me, right? So that's why I was drawn in this direction. The question just becomes, well, what is important to you? What are you striving for? Do you want to learn this for yourself? Do you want to apply it, with other people? What is you might not know your end goal yet, but even just like, what's your short-term goal, right? What direction are you headed? So this accurate recognition is going to change a lot by being precise with, how you're sharing information. My approach, again, in class, I have a lot of logic in my design, so I tend to approach things in that way, and just this logical, orderly way. Why? Because that's what worked for me. The whole thing of, learning so much information. Like I had to keep it organized in order to stay on top of it. Circuitry is a good example of this. Like the first time I heard circuitry, I was so confused about all of it and trying to make sense of all of it and kind of get it in its proper order. Part of this is just the way I'm defined with, the various strengths and definition that I have. So when I ultimately became an instructor at the Institute, I reworked the way circuitry is taught for that reason, right? Just because of my own experience with it. I always want my students to walk away feeling like, oh my gosh, that made sense. I get that. And I can understand it now clearly. And now I can think about applying it. You can't even get to application if you don't even understand what you've learned. Right. Or if it's so abstract or so changed in some way that you don't even really have a sense of what it means. So I really just try to bring a lot of clarity and to some degree, as much simplicity as I can to my teaching. So, how all of this being foundation as a starting point changes your approach to work. Like I shared with you earlier in the session, I can absolutely see how my decision making has changed. I have stopped letting everything be a mental exercise and moved to a place of working from my correct authority. And I recognize it now. The one thing I'll say here too, that for me, the thing that really stood out when I was first learning, like the whole gut response, like I did not connect with that right out of the gate. I was like, not like, oh yeah, my gut response, I totally know how that feels. No, I did not know how that felt at all because I was very much in my head. So, I really picked up on the whole thing of satisfaction or frustration for a builder, which are the key indicators that we talk about. And same thing there. Like you could look up key indicators and be like, oh, key indicator, for a builder, satisfaction and frustration. And then people don't say anything more than that. Well, okay. What is satisfaction? What does that look like? That can look like a lot of different things. So that's what I started hooking into. That. Am I frustrated? What was frustrating me? Was it a person, a situation, the decision I made? And then I essentially like reverse engineered from that place. Then I started getting more in touch with my gut response, but it definitely took time and practice. Like I did not just immediately know or could feel exactly what that was in any kind of meaningful or accurate way. But through time and experience and experimentation, I have. So learning to speak in ways that align with your type. And then, communication is huge, right? Just like how you approach communications. And then team dynamics is a big part. We get into just some highlights in foundations, but we go much deeper into that in certification. But again, I always just feel like, hey, it has to start with you. You have to know yourself first and foremost, then you can be effective with other people. So for people in the room who are leaders, right, like knowing yourself first helps you to be a more effective manager, a leader, a business owner, and all of those things. So foundation is for new students who have some knowledge, but they want to go deeper. They want to get more clarity. They're interested in going further with it. It's for people who are coaches and professionals now. Or if you're actively seeking certification, you want to do that. Foundation is the first step. So this is, certainly this idea of you might know your type, but you still feel stuck. You're like, okay, what else is there to know? What am I supposed to do with this? It really, we spend so much time on the application of all of this and moving from this place of letting it just be a concept in your mind, but really getting into the experience of it. And this is just a visual, around this idea of the path, right? Awareness. A lot of people have awareness of human design at this point, but that is very much on the surface, right? It's the initial discovery and maybe even really resonating with it. Like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And I really love this. And then moving further into understanding, learning the mechanics, learning the vocabulary. And again, between AI and all the other stuff out there, you can get to this step. But then moving on from there, assimilation, living it and observing it in context and deepening your learning in that way, and then continuing your studies, all of that is what's really leaning into competence to be able to really accurately apply it to your own life and to others. So, just ask yourself a couple of questions. It's like, well, do you understand your career type intellectually, but kind of struggle with the mechanics as I was sharing with you? It was really, through practice, right? And continuing to observe and study and learn what other people were doing. That's how I deepened my own learning. Are you a coach or professional? You want to add this to your practice in a responsible way? Or do you want to move, just beyond descriptions and kind of get to this genuine recognition? If any of these are landing with you, then foundations may be the right step for you. So core distinction to take with you: knowledge tells you what a design is. The competence lets you see what is actually correct for a person in this moment, in the context of their career and life. And these are all things that we can learn. So if you're ready to go deeper, I'm going to hang here. I'll stop sharing in a moment. I want to just go over to the BG5 site, and then I'll point out a couple of other things. But, you can certainly ask me any questions you may have here. You can follow up with me after the fact as well. So let me just see what's in chat. Okay, Marilyn, you're saying that was resonating. You have the 3457 split definition. So your sacral seems to need to go through its own process. Yeah, there are so many nuances in the way, again, our designs come together. Actually, let me just come out of this PowerPoint here. I'm going to close that. So I'm just over here on the BG5 website. So just a reminder about a couple of things. If you haven't already gotten a free report for yourself, those options are right here under the reports. And then under education, I'll just go over to foundation. So for semester 1, my next one is coming up, like I said, on March 11th. So that is right here, along with the information on the schedule and the topics that we're going to be covering here. So we take this deeper dive into the career types. We start getting into shadows. Shadows and just all the conditioning, that is something we cover in every semester, essentially, of all studies, because there is just layer after layer after layer, to understanding, right, how these things kind of show up in our design. And with the foundation option, there is a package. When you choose the package, that is you saying, okay, yep, I'm just going to get the 2 semesters right away. You get a complete report, like the full report, for $5. If you already have one, you could use it, right, for somebody else. You get an online course around emotional intelligence, and then you get a one-on-one with me. So that's probably the big thing, right? When you buy the package, you're just saving a bit by buying everything in one shot, and then I'm doing a one-on-one session with you. And even though it says career design overview, I pack a lot into a 90-minute session with you. And wherever you want to go, we'll go. I have no hesitation in that whatsoever. So we can go as deep as you want in that 90-minute session. Okay, so just know that. And then if you've already taken foundation and you're ready for certification, those packages are over here as well. So my semester 1 is beginning in May 1st. Those are on Fridays in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then same thing applies. There is a package price for that if you want to kind of pull the whole bundle together and access it that way. So just going over to Maya Mechanics, this is the software we use once we're certified. I just have my design sitting here, at the moment. And, in foundations, I always have your designs up. We are looking and talking about your designs every class. Every single class, for, again, all the reasons I already shared with you, right? Like, we're not just going to have an intellectual conversation. I want to make sure you know the information, but what matters to me is that you understand how it applies to you. How is this showing up for you? What does this look like? So we really dive into the designs a whole lot. And then, just like I shared with you that I'm often looking at, like, the current transit, I'm just over here in my body graph, but I pull it up in Maya Mechanics as well. I'm always just looking to see, well, where is everything? And how is it interacting, with my design at this moment? And what am I noticing? So I spend time doing that in class as well, right? To just get you noticing. these things in your own life. Because, you know, in that regard, I've also noticed not everything impacts us, right? We are not all having the same experience every single day. Some things come into the sun or in various parts of the design, and I am not explicitly noticing it. Even if I'm actively looking for it, there's nothing that's really jumping out to me. And other times it is so in my face, you know, where I am really, really noticing it. And I just find that fascinating. Some of it just has to do, it depends how it's connecting up, right, with something in our design. So all of these are so interesting. I definitely try to explore all kinds of things when we're together in class and, you know, make it fun as well. So, all right, I'm going to stop sharing. Just want to check in with you. Does anybody have a question or want to come? I mean, I presume, I don't know if everybody's muted. But you can come off of mute and ask a question or put something in chat. So Tracy is also a 4-6 builder with a defined head, and Ashna, that's so funny. I know. So we have that in common. Actually, going back over there a moment, just because you said that, let me just go back over here. That's so funny. So one of the things that, you know, is true, again, for all of us is, you know, there's just this head thing going on. Now, for people that have it defined, like myself and Tracy, there's just constant mind chatter, ideas, and I want to do this, and I have 5,000 things I want to do, and let's do that, you know, endless lists. I don't know if that's your experience as well, right? But there's all this stuff kind of going on in my head, like all the time because of the pressure, right? We're experiencing pressure. And if you have it open, depending what you also have defined up in there, you may notice pressure. The other thing is I have an open drive and stamina. You know, this is another example of, like, in terms of the mechanics and what I learned, drive and stamina is actually really low on the hierarchy of the shadows. But this is what I notice all the time. The pressure I feel to move, to act, the way I notice pressure from other people. If someone pressures me, oh my gosh, you know, you'll all end up doing stuff from my head because I can't tap into this because I am getting distracted. And that's what happens for us. We get distracted. And essentially, whether you're defined or undefined up here, your head is looking down at your body and saying, well, that's a problem. This is a problem. And what's wrong with you? Try harder. You know, you're so this, you're so that. What's wrong with you? You're, you know, all these things kind of go on in our heads. And that has to be one of the biggest things I've learned from this too, right? It's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. There really is nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's the mechanics of how things come together. And can I take enough of a step back and actually notice what's going on? All right, so let me see here. Okay, how big are class sizes? All right, hold on, let me go. Okay, Tracy, you're having the same experience. Yes, class sizes, mine are typically, they've been like 10 to 12. There could be one or two more beyond that, but not gigantic, very manageable. You know, I like to make sure that, you know, we are all having a good experience. So they're not gigantic. And Tracy also has open drive and stamina. This is very funny that you have those similar qualities. And then 6-2 sacred builder, open root, same here, especially with your husband and daughter with a defined root. Yeah, right. Like we just feel that pressure. And so I see a question here. Are you sometimes switching terminology? I did a little bit in here, but for the most part, like, well, first of all, like when we're going through BG5, I'm always using the correct, you know, BG5 language. It's just, it depends also who's in the class. So if you're coming from the IHDS side, you know, you're going to be more familiar with the original language and less so the BG5, but we're always teaching the BG5. And you know, I'm, you know, certainly try to be very savvy between the two, even though my studies are focused over here on BG5. I know the original language as well, just through all my studies and all of my reading of source material. So let's see, hopefully that answered that question. Just let me know if you have another question around that. So Marilyn is asking, is drive ego will center? If so, me too. Okay, so the ego and will center is here, right? And that becomes like another, I'm using my chart as an example, right? Okay, I have the 21 unconscious twice, unconscious in my moon, which is a driving force, and then also unconscious in my future environment. 21 is all about control. And then on top of it, I have the 18 three different times in my design. Talk about someone who wants control. Even though I have penta qualities, I am not really good like working with like a set group of people every day, right? This is the type of stuff you discover. I'm always trying to, again, apply it to real life, real careers, real work. What does this look like? Our designs might tell us one thing, but how is it, actually coming together it's perpetually fascinating to me because it looks different for everybody. Yes, everything is recorded. The question is, are the classes recorded? Yes, 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 for sure. And then everything is also posted over here. So I'm back on the BG5 website. And when we're, kind of logged in, let me just go over to my subscription. So if you're not totally familiar with this, when you sign up for a class, you're going to set up your account, and then you will also see my subscriptions. And then your foundation course, if that's where you're starting, that's going to be sitting here. So for example, here is the March 11th course, but I'll just go into my semester 2 that I'm wrapping up. So this one is currently going. You're going to see, the classes and, what we're covering. And then in any given class, you're always going to see the assignment. There's always the access to the replay. I package everything up for you so you could download the whole set of files if you want to. And then I give you the handout in PDF format, essentially, of the slides of everything that I'm covering. So you just have everything in one set. And then the assignment is always there. And then there is a place for the students, for all of you to, share. Okay, what are you noticing this week? And then, we have a lot of discussion in the forum as well, which is a huge part of your learning. I mean, again, like even for me, like all these years now, I have learned so much and continue to learn so much from my students of how they experience something. And it just goes into this repository in my head of like, oh, that might play out that way. That is good to know. I'm always pleasantly surprised. Let's see. Let me go back over here to the questions. Let me see. I'll pop back out of there for a moment. Classes recorded. Do we need a paid subscription to biomechanics? Yes, but not for foundation. It would be during certification. I think by maybe semester 2, you might be able to get it a little bit sooner than that. But in order to ultimately complete your certification, you will need to purchase the biomechanics. Now, what you saw me using there, by the way, I keep coming out of share and then I keep going back in. Let me just go over here. So this version of Maya Mechanics is the online version. And I really like this one better than the desktop version. You can still get the desktop version, and I have that one too because I originally purchased that when I was getting certified back in, that would have been like 2021 when I was finished with my certification studies. So the original one is perfectly fine. I like this one because it's interactive, right? I can hover over stuff and then I can click on it and I can see, oh yeah, that's trait 5, fixed patterns, and I have it in the 4th quality in the hunter. What does that mean again? And, I have it in detriment. Let me be reminded of what the line item says. And then there's all of this other detailed information in here as well. So I just really like this version of it. So it's an annual subscription fee that you're paying for that online version. Oh, okay. So, and then the question is, you're an analyst training in PTL, and that's why you were asking that other question. Oh, about the language, I presume. Yes. So, like I said, it's fine. Like we're often using a mix of language, but I'm always going to be teaching the BG5 the BG5 correct language, right? And encouraging you to use it, especially when you're talking about, working with clients and working with them in their careers. It's just language that is likely to resonate a little bit more. But I totally get that, some people are just very, very fluent in both languages. So, okay, you're asking about my career trajectory. So, pretty much, let's see, let me kind of peel it back a little bit. I actually started out from when I first went to college, I was in the field of broadcasting. So I was doing some work on TV and radio early on in my career, and initially was going to stay down that path. And something happened, right? Something just kind of got me going in a different direction. And then I went to Japan. I lived in Japan for 2 years and I taught English. That is what kind of gave me that bug of teaching people. And I was like, wow, I really like this. This is really cool. Like interacting with people. Teaching English is not easy, by the way. English has a lot of rules in it. So I learned a whole lot more about English myself, had an incredible experience working with such smart young people in Japan who were really excited about learning English. And then when I came back from that, I got my master's in instructional design and technology. And that's what sent me off on this path of working in the field of learning and development. It's just, I was looking, right? I was like, well, what could I do? What could I study? How could I do this as a career? And that's how I ended up down that path. And like I said, I've either worked for global organizations, mid-sized businesses, but usually, my function, my role always sits on the human resources team. So I have a lot of human resources knowledge as well, because of where I've sat in the organization. So that's why I ended up, working with a lot of leaders and teams and continue to do that to this day, in my primary role. So I see this stuff playing out every single day. The miscommunications, the misguided, careers, the unhappiness, or, the excitement, the love, the passion, all of it, right? I'm seeing all of that play out every single day. So that's kind of big picture. Like I said, I've always been working in the field of learning and development now for these 30 plus years in my career, but I've had lots of different roles within that field. So depending upon the type of organization that I was in or what they wanted me to focus on, I've applied it in a lot of different ways. So yes, so we have a comment about recognizing, yes, the language, the BG5 language can land easier. Yeah, I get it. I know. You know what? We're all addicted, right? In one way, shape, or form. I love this whole area of study. I love everything about human design and BG5. And that's what's so exciting about all of it, to just be on this path and then work with you and see where the journey takes you. I find all of that, really just so fascinating and exciting. And, like you can hear from, certainly my voice and my absolute genuine excitement and love for what I do, just broadly speaking. I really love what I do overall in the field of learning and development, and the way I've brought this knowledge of BG5 into what I do. But it's, gosh, where was I going to go with that? I think it's, I think I just was kind of reiterating that passion about all of it, and meeting other like-minded people and us kind of going on this journey together. All right, I don't see any other comments. Do you have any other questions for me right now? Yes, definitely. That 48 for sure. Absolutely. Unconscious, but not, another thing that I have twice. I have various things that sit in my design multiple times that really surface, but I do think at the heart of it, and that's what I was saying earlier, right? It's like, you know what, even before you ever knew your design was already doing you. So got attracted to this path of learning and development and then pursued it, right? I was following my instinct. I do have the 57. So even though I shared earlier, I didn't initially resonate with this idea of my gut response, but this sort of intuitive understanding of things is definitely present for me. And I notice it, when I'm working with clients, like reading between the lines, noticing things about them that they might not even notice about themselves. And that is the ever fascinating way, right, that our designs kind of come together and play out in real life. All right, that is everything I have. I don't see any other comments or questions. So thank you for interacting with me here, and I hope you enjoyed today's session. I would love to see you in foundations or certification. And if you have any particular questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Just email me again, veronica@bg5businessinstitute.com, or just contact the office. And, happy to connect with you there. You're so welcome, everyone. All right, have a great rest of your day. You take care, and you'll have access to this recording as well. Thank you so much. Lots of love to all of you too. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.